And I look pretty small there, so I better set up tall. My camera's at the wrong angle. So hello everyone, welcome to What Has Stadia Done Now, and it has been another interesting week for Stadia. The good, the bad, the ugly. We seem to say that a lot about Stadia, but sit back and we will go through it all. And hopefully I hit the right button. Yeah, you should not have me in charge of the buttons. It is always a bad idea, isn't it?
I don't know what buttons are anymore. You've changed them since the last time I was in command.
Yeah, but it's all good fun. But we are here again to say what has Stadia done. But before we get on to that, we'll just go through everybody and see how their Stadia life has been. Sammy,
it's been good. Not been gaming that much at all, to be honest, because honestly, here in the UK, I don't know what it's been like in other countries, but it's been incredibly hot. We've had a bit of a heat wave going on here, so I've been pretty much too exhausted or too hot to do anything.
We're meant to be a gaming show here, Sammy, and you haven't been doing anything.
We're meant to be a game. That's why I asked if we were doing anything today. But sorry.
Goodness. Oh my!
I did some gaming on my mobile. Does that count? Not cloud gaming, mind you.
Sammy!
Oh dear.
Okay, Barry, please get us back on track here. How have you been doing?
Not been too bad. Not been too bad. Yeah. Obviously, I've maybe not been as outside as much as Sammy, clearly. So I've had a little bit of time for gaming in the evenings. I have to be honest, in the last few days, I've mainly been playing F1 2021, purely because of its release.
No, you said we'd talk about F1 2021 tonight.
So I know we were going to talk about it, but it is
topical.
the game that I've played most in the last few days, for sure. How about you, Duncan? Can you be the saving grace?
I have been running it. You're wanting me to be the saving grace, and I will be the saving grace and say yes. I've been playing lots of games this week.
On Stadia?
I have played some games on Stadia this week. So
fair enough. You don't better than me.
Okay. I have jumped on and played a bit of Destiny 2 on Stadia just for some chilling out reasons. So yes, I have been playing games, and that's really see, I do play games. So Sammy, we've got a question in the chat here. I'm not sure if you want to answer it or not. Why do you have that in as your background? Unitrix is asking
because I figured it'd be good to bear those words in mind in times like these. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
Okay. The question has been asked, and Sammy has answered it. Jem, thanks for joining us as well. Maker Chaos, thank you as always. So we're going to kick this off here with the big, massive news of the week, and that is
that British Grand Prix.
The British Grand Prix. Oh, do you want to start off the Grand Prix, or do you want to do that?
No, I'm just going to mention that every single time because I know Barry's thoughts on it.
I think when we get to the Grand Prix, we are going to be talking about F1 this week. But when we get to it, yes, we can bring up some F1 talk and get everybody's thoughts on it. And I will just sit here and be grumpy about it all. Okay, so see, this is what happens here. Sammy, you're messing things up. You're messing things up for me.
I'm always messing things up, apparently.
Yeah. So Stadia keynote, basically it was brought in a couple of different ways here. We have our predictions. I know Sammy wants to talk about that shortly. But basically what has happened here is they are shaking things up. And I've seen a lot of things out there people are getting, in my opinion, people are getting too high about it and people are getting too low about it. For me, I'm right bang in the middle. I've seen good things. I've seen things which look like they're steadying the ship, but also there is some worries in there for me as well, which I will touch on. So basically what has happened is they're changing their revenue share in two ways. Basically, you can drop your games onto Pro or for developer now, and they're doing a 70% split with you. So the 70% of the money on Stadia Pro will be distributed between all the different developers out there, excuse me, who are on Pro. And the way they're doing it is if you play, I'm just thinking of my head has went completely blank here. If Arc jumps onto Pro next month, and
predictions in early.
Yeah, get your predictions in early, and you play that every single day. That counts as 30 playthroughs, even if you just jump in for 2 seconds a playthrough. Yeah, that's counted as a play. If you sit there and get go to Sammy's favorite game, the wine drinking game.
That's not on Pro.
What's the name of that game?
Oh, 100 days.
100 days. If 100 days drops on the Pro and you sit and play that for 4 or 5 hours day one and another 4 or 5 hours on day two, that counts as two uses of that. It's not done by length of use. That is the way they're doing it. So if you're playing it, if you blitz a game in a day or two, that's only counted as 1 or 2 days. But if you take your time and do it every couple of days, that's actually counted as more days, which means the developer gets more points on the board to get more money in this revenue split. That's what I was trying to go down with.
Am I also right in thinking that if you play it twice in the same day, that's still only one play?
It's only 1 day per day.
So if you play it 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one play.
So I think it's worth going over that. Also, what they are doing here is they're changing the revenue split if you buy a game coming later this year. It's not next month. The Pro thing starts October
the next year,
yeah. And basically with that, it's an 85 to 15. So developers will keep 85% of their money and 15% goes to Stadia for the first $3 million, which is interesting. I think we can have a good talk about that. But the most important thing in my eyes, what was announced is they are adding in so it's going to make games easier to port across the Stadia. So you don't have to worry about porting it to Linux. You can be just using the DirectX version of it and using hooks to do that. So it should speed things up and bringing games across, or not speed things up is probably the wrong words. Make your game more accessible to come to Stadia. It shouldn't be a barrier.
It lowers the barriers. Yeah,
it's lowering a barrier is absolutely great. So, Sammy, actually Barry first, because I know you've got some big things you want to talk about there. So Barry,
me or Sammy?
Sammy does. So Barry, what's your take
He's
on it?
He's hyping me up.
Oh,
yes,
he is. Yeah, I mean, I think I know we covered this on Friday in the roundup, and I think after a couple of days have gone by, I'm not necessarily sure that my opinion have changed. I can see the good, but I think it's very much balanced on a if in terms of the uptake. Obviously, I think hand in hand, we're talking about bringing more developers to the platform. We're also talking about bringing player numbers up. And I think obviously they are making moves first and foremost, yes, to make it easier to bring the games in. But then they are trying to make it, attractive for people. Aside of making it easier, they're trying to make it attractive for people to bring the games. Now, I know you could argue that there's a tremendous amount of ifs and buts whenever you kind of start with anything. But I think with a particularly maybe the place that generally, I think in the wider gaming sphere that Stadia are in at the moment, I think it's
got anything down on my screen.
Oh, yeah, that's a horrible freeze frame. Yeah, there is.
YouTube Studio is saying something. We're not receiving enough video. You're not sending enough video, Duncan.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Says excellent connection now. Yeah.
I cannot believe everybody missed that excellent rendition of Sweet Caroline by Sammy. That was.
I know, and I'll never do it again.
Oh, dear. Brilliant. Apparently, you're on mute, Duncan.
Yeah, that's probably the other. I'm on mute. So basically, what I was saying there, for people who didn't get the joke, Sammy also said it was 100% is Max's fault yesterday. So here we go. Barry, can you just go over things again for us?
Yep, of course. I think the point that I'd reached maybe before we cut off, I was just saying, obviously, I think as we covered on Friday's kind of roundup, you can certainly see the good. I like the fact they're making it easier for people to bring the games to the platform. Obviously, the driver is to attract devs and grow the player base. I think my biggest concern with the moves that are kind of made, and I know Jem said this in our stream on Friday, he kind of feels like it's they're in an all or nothing place right now. And I think that's probably a good way of summing up in short words how I feel, in the sense of the fact that if we look at kind of financial, the financials of maybe how they've been doing with kind of player numbers, then sales targets and all those sorts of things, they're a little bit on the low side, and then they're kind of cutting into that money. And I think when we are, give it 4 months, and we are going to be at 2 years worth of 2 years worth of existence, and what we're doing is cutting revenue to say, actually, let's try and get people in, let's try and get developers in, so we've got more games, we've got more people. The biggest, of course, concern with that is if it doesn't work and it doesn't pay off in terms of where Stadia sits in the wider gaming community, then that's in a whole kind of world of trouble, because you are then you're losing more money because you're giving away more money to the devs, and that you're potentially not going to claim back. That 3 million in game sales for a lot of games doesn't sound a lot, but I think potentially with some of the player numbers that we've got on on the platform, dependent on game choices, there could well be a lot of people, dev-wise, who actually find that they never hit that 3 million. So they just kind of reap that benefit, which is great for the devs. That's perfect, because that goes back into them, to be able to kind of continue development and kind of go into new franchises or second installments and franchises if something's successful. But it is... Yeah, it's go big or go home, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. I think when you're in that position that you are now, that's where it is.
Okay, Samuel.
I think you have to look at it from where we were talking about the keynote last week on last week's show. We said this is very much aimed at the developers, and these are people they need to get on board. I think the announcements they brought out, making games easier to port with DirectX and allowing not an outright Windows angle, as far as I understand it, but more it's less reliant on Linux.
What I would probably say is, just to get my wee thing in here, that's what she said.
I'm not as good on the technical knowledge, so
I think the best way to probably sum it up is basically think of it like the Steam Deck. Because that Steam Deck is built in Linux, and they are using Proton to get the hooks in, so it's easier to port. So think that's probably the best way to probably think about it. So,
okay.
that would be.
But yeah, my overall point was they're trying to make it easier for devs. They're trying to sell the platform to the developers again, almost like you saw at GDC in 2019. Get the developers on board, show them what the platform does. Now they're trying to get it all about what platform can give the developers. So this is, you get 15% rather than 30% without going to Google. Easier to port. What we need to see, and again, Jem touched on, Barry mentioned it earlier, is that this is quite a big roll of the dice for Google on Stadia. We won't see the effects of this for quite a while yet, because these will be games that launch in Q3 this year, I think, for the 85-15 split. And then obviously that has an effect going forward. So I think we'll start seeing effects around about this time next year, as sort of this has energized the wider game dev market, or whether it's not been enough to, let's be fair, turn the tide against a game developer market that's not been totally warm towards Stadia.
Yeah. Okay, my take, I was very enthusiastic about the changes, what they're doing. I mentioned this on the CGX podcast on Saturday night for us. We have been getting a hell of a lot of flack about some of the stuff we say. And with this announcement, a lot of the stuff we've been asking to make it easier report and make it more appealing to developers and things like that, this is what they are doing. So absolutely brilliant. And we just don't come here just to go, Stadia is bad, Stadia is rubbish, anything like that. We are just trying to give our opinions on things, and you may not like our opinions at the time, but some of this seems to have, our opinions seem to have maybe borne out some of this because of the changes which have been being made. Again,
what we're also not saying, I don't think we're saying, is that Google have listened to us and bent to our will. We do not hold that power.
No, we don't.
And thank God we don't hold that power.
Yes. We'll be awful with that power. It'll be like the One Ring, and it'll be like, if you give us that, it would be an absolute disaster. Yes, absolutely. But it's just sometimes we say stuff, and we're saying it for the right reasons, because we want Stadia to get better and push on. So with this, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think Barry touched on this. 3 million is actually quite low if you actually think about it. If this is EA, Activision,
it works out at about 500,000 per game.
Yeah,
changing hands. Yeah.
If you think about it, it would be only. I'm trying to work this out here. It's about 70 to 80. I mean, it's not 100,000 sales, because that'd be 6 million. So it's about just over 50.
In terms of money, have they hit the cap? The money switching hands would be, to be exact, 450,000, I believe.
Oh, what I'm meaning is for game sales, it will be about 40,000 to 50,000 50,000 to 60,000 game sales for like an EA, a Take-Two, etc., which is small potatoes for them. So I think there's going to be still deals need to be made for the major publishers, but for the indie publishers, I think this deal is absolutely banging for them, and I think we are going to see a lot of things down the line. It's another thing I like the sound off is they're going to be pushing Pro. They're going to be trying to get as many games into Pro as possible. It's to build that library up because of the competition out there. More games in there means it just looks better value, because at this moment in time, in my opinion, Pro needs a complete and utter really needs to be looked at, and because the value for me it isn't there.
I'm curious, did you stop yourself from saying overhaul, or did you forget the word?
No, I wasn't going down that route.
I just wasn't sure. I was just asking.
Yeah, about an overhaul, because I think we're going to get the second piece of this in the coming months for the consumer side. I think we're going to see Stadia come out here and say, we are changing Pro, and this is how it is going to change. I think we're going to hear that games going into Pro, we will no longer be able to claim them, but they're going to counteract that by saying we're going to be putting a lot more games into Pro, if that makes sense. Sammy, you don't like the sound of that?
I'm just trying to make, I suppose from the user's endpoint, there's not much difference between claiming a game and using it while subscribed to Pro, and just subscribing to Pro giving you access to the game.
Yeah, it's moving away from like the PlayStation Plus, Xbox Live, and more into Game Pass and PlayStation Now. So if you claim a game, say Tomb Raider, if you were lucky enough to be on Stadia in the second month of Pro, you got Tomb Raider as a Pro game. If you didn't claim that, so I'm just trying to work this out. I knew where it would start.
Okay, so when games leave, like when they leave PlayStation Now or xCloud, okay,
you completely lose them, but you'll be given the option to buy them. I that's where I see where things are maybe going to go. I'm just waiting for the second half of the statement to come through, just to say that we're going to be changing Pro. I think they're going to keep it to the same price. And the big thing I would love them to do is say 4K is if you buy a game. You buy a game, you get it on 4K. Pro is now our subscription service, and they're just going to try and get as many games onto it as possible. So
the nice thing about that is it furthers click to play. That ethos of kind of click and play. If you don't have to claim it, you can just be like, well, actually, it's not claim, click, play. It's now just click and play.
And that was very much a recurring theme throughout the keynote. They kept mentioning that technology, the ability to click a link on a game in the trailer or on a tweet, and the engagement they can get from that.
Yeah. What I'm hoping is we're going to see some of the older games which were on Pro before come back to Pro, and the one that sticks into my head and it falls into this what you've been talking about there is, and it's getting a revamp, is Get Packed. If they drop Get Packed back onto that into Pro, and then you can get a couple of streamers going, click and play and have crowd play, and you can do a bit of crowd choice, choose what levels and stuff like that. I think there's lots of opportunities here now for Stadia down the line if they start filling up their library with these games. And if the smaller devs in particular, they will be seeing these bounties which are on offer if they get people converted over to it. Because Sammy, I know you're a big Outcasters fan, even though I'm better at the game than you, and it is on record multiple places, and I don't even really...
Not than me. You're better than a wrestler who played it on day one.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm better than you. We've seen that. No. We've seen that in streams as well. We've seen that in stream. Yes, we have. Do I have to go and clip these things and show you how awesome I am at the game?
We'd have to get the clip feature first.
Yeah. Yes. No, but I'm talking. It's beyond like the Outcasters channel. It was on Outcasters channel when they were streaming. I was in there, absolutely wrecking the place out, being absolutely outstanding and being like the best player there. You're just denying all knowledge of that.
Yes, because it happened.
See. Oh, well, you've not
just like Lewis Hamilton driving cleanly yesterday didn't happen.
Yes, we'll they get into that. Don't worry.
We're going to mention it every single topic tonight. We might as well.
But just going back, some of the games which have been on Stadia, and it's what me and Rock used to call it's a Stadia game, where it is a multiplayer short burst sort of game. These games, if they can get them all shifted onto Pro, it is going to be a huge opportunity. And if they get the devs on board to get their bounties and their affiliates, if they have, like, this is where I was going with the Outcasters, if they got Outcasters playing there, and as they do on every couple of weeks, or is it every couple of weeks or is it every month, Sammy?
It's every other week, every other Thursday evening. Splash Damage YouTube channel plays Outcasters with Crowd Playing Crowd Trolls.
Yeah, so just if they could then convert people onto that, it could be a rolling stone down. There's just so much opportunity here, and what I'm hoping is we're going to start seeing this opportunity grow for Stadia now, because this is what we want. We want all these features going on, because I want all these different cloud companies fighting to make each other better, because if they're all fighting, things are improving, and they keep on pushing on. It's just so much there. James saying when we might get the space level and get packed. Here's a wee plug. I'll be putting Get Packed in my Stadia Pro predictions, which we're going to be doing on Friday. So I'm giving.
Friday. Okay.
So if anybody copies me, they've watched here. Sammy, I'm looking at you.
I think there's going to be games we all choose this week. I've already told you what one of my predictions are.
I can't remember.
You might have forgotten, but I've said several times what I think.
Yeah, I think Pro is going to be very, very interesting to watch over the next couple of months. I think we might get a sniff of what's going on this month, but I think it's probably more likely to be September before we see these big push, unless they've been planning this behind the scenes. And this next week, is it next week? Or we should find out next week?
Next Tuesday, so not tomorrow Tuesday, next Tuesday.
We should maybe get a sniff of maybe what's going on there, and they come out and announce we're trying to get Stadia Pro, the Netflix of games. Yes, I'm going to get the cliche in. Sorry, I'm just doing that for badness, but it's
of course he is.
Yes. I just hope to go through all these games and to try and get as many devs on as possible, because there's Code Sync games with Get Packed, and you've also got that's my diff in my head, the volley, the Cake Bash. Yeah. There's a couple of them games out there. Could you imagine like Overcooked? Overcooked would be a brilliant game to get onto Stadia with that, and there'll be lots of fightings. Absolutely, there. It's going to be fun. Yeah, Gemma, the ability to gift Pro would be absolutely amazing during this as well. Barry, is there anything you want to say in this? Because we've got a couple of questions in here as well.
No, we can go for the questions if you want. I mean, I think I personally would like to see. I think I've just said no, and then I've gone on to talk. I'll just say this, and then we can go to the questions. I personally would like to see, a bit of a shake-up of Pro, because I feel that it maybe needs a little bit of a kind of a revamp. So that's something that I'd certainly support.
Sammy?
No, let's go straight to the questions.
Should Netflix not charge you for 4K HDR? That's
aimed at you.
Yes, that is aimed at me. Here is the difference. You're not buying on Netflix. You're streaming on Netflix. You don't buy the stuff on Netflix. If you were buying things, I think it should be the same price as you get now with the movies. If you buy a movie, you used to have to buy the 4K version for more money. Now, if you just buy a version, it is the version, and it comes with 4K, Dolby Atmos.
Has that changed?
Yeah.
When did that change?
A while ago.
I swear it was like that over Christmas.
When I buy mine on Apple TV.
Oh, I'm Google.
Oh, no.
I'm Google for everything, apart from gaming, where I'm everything.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing. I think if you're buying it, yes, you should have the full version. That is something they could probably look at if they're moving Pro into a sub model, like a proper sub model like Game Pass. There could be the $9.99 a month where you get all the games at 1080p, and you pay an extra couple of pounds or dollars to get them at 4K. That could be the compromise.
I was just going to say, I think the biggest difference for me in that kind of comparison, of course, is that Netflix, whilst it may be streamed and there might be a difference in bitrate, it is literally 3840 by 2160. Whereas there's a lot of the 4K games on Stadia are 4K 30 and not 4K 60, or the dynamic resolution where they're hitting 1800 or in that region, and then they're kind of upsampling in order to try and get there. Whereas the level of proficiency with the Netflix 4K stream is much more standardized. Obviously, it's video form, so you could argue that maybe it's slightly easier, but then there's still different codecs and all that sort of stuff that they can use to kind of maximize quality and bandwidth and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't really see that as a straight one-for-one comparison, because you're paying for Pro, and then the actual number of games that are truly, anywhere close to 4K isn't maybe what you'd expect.
Okay, I'm going to mention something here, and I am not getting at anybody. I'm just putting this out here. I'm just trying to make this absolutely clear. I am not getting at anybody. With statistics, I know there is statistics going out there. There is X amount of games at 4K 60 HDR on Stadia, and the people who gather them, absolutely brilliant job. But if you actually go into it, most of the games are the indie games. It's not the big AAA titles which are 4K 60, and I think that's where you have a harder time actually showing off or justifying the 4K, because people would be wanting to play the blockbusters at 4K 60. I think that's where we need to be careful, because with statistics, and I say this with all the sort of statistics out here, and I am not getting at anybody, is statistics can be shaped to few statistics can be used to put the facts out there in the way you want them to put them out there. If that makes any, you can shape the statistics to actually inflate something which really looks good, or deflate things you don't really want them to do. It's, should always take statistics with a pinch of salt and see who's actually putting them out there. I'm just saying I'm getting at absolutely no one there.
I think the other thing I would also say, is, I know there are some people out there that do want 4K, but there's a lot of people in the community actually that are just like, do you know what? Give me 1080 60 all day long. And there's a part of me that kind of feels like what they'd be better doing is focusing on getting a higher bit rate at 1080 60, so that you've got a greater level of fidelity, so that you can actually play it and then kind of enjoy the game almost as it was designed to be enjoyed.
That would be my suggestion. I am slightly biased in that I don't game on a 4K screen. The screen I use for just about everything in my room is my 1080p TV, which it's perfectly fine. It's not 4K. I don't need the higher resolution. What I'd like is the higher frame rate and the higher bit rate, maybe to try and up the graphical quality. The resolution isn't what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I don't really like when we're doing our straight shows on whatever topic we're doing at the Stadia show. I don't like bringing up other cloud services, but I just want to say GFN at 1080 is absolutely brilliant. 1080, 60. Some of the games just absolutely blow Stadia's 4K modes or the higher quality modes completely and utterly away. So for me, if I was over there at Stadia, getting the 1080 60 and hitting that well is more important than hitting 4K 30 with things turned down. If they're in a bit of a power situation where they don't really want to push things, keep it at 1080 60 and make sure there is a 60 FPS mode no matter what.
Definitely.
Okay. Anything else we want to talk about from the developers' keynote?
I think we can move on. We had, I guess we can move on to the big news of the day. I say day because it was only announced about an hour ago.
Okay.
An hour before we.
And in theory, this should work.
In theory, it should work. Oh boy.
I have now got Tom Clancy's, what's the name of the game again? Defiant.
X-Defiant.
X-Defiant.
Yeah. Lending its name to the title of today's episode, of course.
Yeah, I'm just so forgetful and stupid at times. So we have this trailer running on our stream here. This is a free-to-play game. It is coming to Stadia. Stadia will not be part of the beta, but the game is coming to Stadia. It is going to be another free-to-play game, which is absolutely vital that Stadia try and get as many free-to-play games going on. Basically, this is a shooter game based in the Tom Clancy's sort of space, which Ubisoft have created. I think it looks pretty cool. I want to see more of it. I want to get my hands onto it. It seems to be a bit quick. It's not like Rainbow Six. It's more like Call of Duty, where you're just in, out, shoot, and die, and reload, and back into which I think is going to be a load of fun. It is taking, for me, since I've seen it, it just reminds me of the Division, just the look and the feel. I mean, you've got some Division characters in it as well, with the cleaners and things like that. So, Sammy, have you had a chance to see this at all?
I did. I made sure I watched the trailer beforehand because I didn't want to be the person that the big news story of the day and I knew nothing about it. But yeah, I can't add too much to what you said. It looks very exciting. Good to see it coming to Stadia. And as a free-to-play game, could be quite pivotal for Stadia in terms of getting players onto the platform, giving them a game that's accessible, that they can enjoy, and showing them how well the platform works. I think we saw that a little bit with Rainbow Six Siege, but you still have to buy the game or at least be subscribed to Ubisoft Plus. This lowers that barrier even further, and hopefully we'll be good. Do we have any word on crossplay for the game?
I haven't heard anything, but I will have a quick look while we're doing this. Oh, Barry.
Yeah, I think this is great news. I watched the reveal earlier. It was obviously one of the things that I had my eye closely on. Are we going to see any cloud platforms? And thank goodness we did. I think it's exactly the kind of game Stadia needs. Good, fast-paced, bit of action from franchises that we all obviously pre-Stadia and with Stadia have come to love and enjoy. You've got the Echelon from Ghost Recon in there. There's a variety of different kind of makeups kind of coming in, into that. And I think it looks like it's going to be a game that's going to do wonders. I really do think it's in a great position, for the cloud. It's one of those games. We were talking earlier about click to play. And I think when you kind of, this is the type of game. Do you know what? Actually, I'm at work. I've got 10 minutes spare. Do you know what? I'm going to jump in and have a quick game. I think it really, really could do wonders. In the cloud, and brilliant. Obviously, it's Ubisoft, so obviously they're avid support.
We stopped again. Oh boy.
No worries.
It's only when Barry starts talking.
That's all right. That's fine. There's plenty of other people that don't too.
Duncan, you're muted again, apparently.
Again. With this game, this could be a major opportunity if this game takes off, because as we know, Call of Duty is one of the most wanted games in the cloud, and this seems to be taking a hell of a lot of inspiration from Warzone and things like, maybe not Warzone, but Call of Duty in general. And it's going to be fun to see how this goes.
Am I right in thinking as well? 6v6.
Yep, 6v6.
Yep, 6v6.
There is no word about crossplay. Okay, we don't have clips at the moment, but clip this. I think it will have crossplay, and I think it's going to also have cross progression because Ubisoft have came out and said definitely things about cross progression. This game, I think, will have crossplay as well.
I think it would be reasonable to assume. Don't expect, but reasonable to assume that it would have similar crossplay model to what we saw with Rainbow Six Siege. And the crossplay between Stadia, Luna, and PC, cross progression. Is cross progression across all platforms?
I think no. Or is it?
I'm not sure that it is actually. It should, in theory, it should be part of the Ubisoft Connect, so you should at least have it across Luna, Stadia, and PC, probably.
I think it's going to be cross progression or cross play with everything. There is enough. Yes, sorry, I just full cross play at launch. I am being stupid. I missed that bit there. It's 100% full cross play. I was reading it too quickly for my own good. I am on the website here. It does have full crossplay. So absolutely brilliant. There's nothing about cross save at this moment in time. So I apologize for that. I just misread that really, really quickly because I've got sometimes I just do two things too quick here. So basically, matches will take across a variety of maps.
Going very well, does it?
Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. There's something weird going on. So we've got so much to talk about. So this game looks cool. We're just trying to get this done before this goes again. I'm going to have a big proper look at this to see what is going on. It's everything should be working. It just seems every so often the internet on
you tried placing a keyboard.
Blame it on the heat.
Yes, it's the heat over in France. It's melting all the servers over there. So game looks cool. You can't do anything. It's coming with full crossplay, which is going to be vital for Stadia and Luna. Absolutely class. We will move on to the big talking point of today.
Oh.
F1 2021 is not coming to Stadia. It is 100% confirmed. It is not here. It has not arrived.
Can we clarify? 100% confirmed. I was under the impression we already knew it wasn't coming to Stadia.
No, there was no announcement that it wasn't coming. The week has passed now and it hasn't come. And this is what a lot of people think. You have to wait till the game actually releases for it to do it again. So it hasn't came out. It's disappointing. We've got the Racing League, which I've talked about. This is the green shoots, which Stadia should have been really investing to make sure that the game came because so many people play and it's roller coaster. People are leaving, blah, 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 blah. So, Sammy, don't cry, I've been told to say.
But that's what it says, yeah.
Yeah, so what's your take? And then we will go into the big discussion.
I think it's a massive shame, to be honest. Obviously, I am slightly biased. When Stadia first launched, the main publisher I looked for, main developer I looked for on the list of developers making games for it was Codemasters, because I wanted to know whether at the time F1 2020 had a chance of coming to Stadia. And I was over the moon to find out it had been. And obviously, we've done a player alongs on Cloudy and culminating in 2 Stadia GPs so far, hopefully 3. We're still waiting to hear confirmation from Codemasters that the game will be available to buy on Stadia. Again, after some of the issues they've had with that. The game itself, I'm liking it as someone who's a big fan of F1. The story mode is the big addition, which story mode could need a bit more work, but I'm starting to review the game rather than talking about it not coming to Stadia. It's a massive shame. And as you said, with the Stadia Racing League, this is a grassroots community which was behind the platform and exactly the sort of thing which can help grow the platform, that have now had to start looking elsewhere to play the latest game in one of their most popular series.
Yeah. Barry,
I think it's a crying shame that it's not made it. It's not returned. It's kind of catalogued its place as another franchise that's not returned. And I think it's not great. I don't know what else there is to say about it. I mean, I think we said a little bit about it last week. I don't think there's kind of too much to say on that front. I have a feeling that it might be a tightening of the purse strings at Stadia's end, which has prevented it. But
did you say it's Stadia's end or Codemasters' end?
I will answer that first. I'll go first. I think it's a Stadia's end. I think this was a paid for port, and I don't think they've seen the numbers to justify porting it across, because as we've seen with this title, F1 2020, we've seen with other games, which we're going to come on to shortly as well, it isn't so much as bringing it to Stadia in the first instance, it's maintaining it as well. And if they're not getting the sales, there's no point keeping it going. Dominic, I'm going to disagree. I don't think this is EA. I think this is Codemasters, because I think it would have been far enough in development and things like that. I think this is a Cody's decision.
I think Jam did say when we were discussing this last week that kind of put his 2 pence worth in to say that he was fairly confident from his side that it wasn't an EA thing as well.
I just think it was a Cody's thing. I think this would have been development well before the EA deal passed, and even though we were pretty sure it was going to pass, you can't always put all your eggs in one basket. So they would have been, if Stadia had paid for the money and put the contract in, I think it would have still come. We're going to be coming on to another game as well shortly, which we're going to discuss, which I think would probably back them feelings up. What about you, Sammy?
I think, as we said last week, this is more on Codemasters. I'm not doing, which is a shame. We've heard from Codemasters themselves when they accepted the Cloud Gaming Awards in December. They were supporting Cloud Gaming. They saw the potential behind it. Hopefully, what I'm hoping is this is just a one-off. You look at F1 2021, it's got the new story mode, but it's got a lot of content from F1 2020 that isn't in F1 2021. Custom championships, classic cars. There's a lot of stuff which hasn't made the journey over across the years. It might be that they're preparing for a relaunch. Obviously, in real life, F1 2022, we've got massive rule changes coming in for cars. We might be seeing that they just left Stadia and Cloud on the back burner for a little bit.
I think we might
to come back stronger in 22. That's annoying, because I was really on a
roll. No, we're fine.
Oh no, we're back.
No,
yeah.
we're
Yay!
fine.
Everyone heard that point. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the big talking. Or I'll just give my thing. I think it's an absolute. Now, the disaster is too strong of a word. It's an absolute shame that this hasn't come. And again, it's about keeping your annual franchises, because that shows health in the platform. And F1 2020 is still missing. I'm going to make a bold prediction. You won't be able to buy that again. I think
that's not a bold prediction. I made it last week.
Yes. I thought it might have came back last week at some stage, but the longer this goes on, the less likely I think it will be going on there. Okay.
And to be fair, the logic behind that is Codemasters have a lot to do still to port for F1 2021. There's 3 tracks from calendar that's not yet in the game. They're going to continue upgrading the real season start formats.
And start work on the hard stuff for next year already.
And 2022 is, to be fair, it's probably been in development for the last 4 or 5 months already.
Yeah. So,
I was just going to say, I don't think they're finished with Breakpoint either. I think that you'll get more to that as well.
I hope so.
Having now played through it, I will say I finished it. I really enjoyed it. But you can see that they've left it open for a further step in a another episodic kind of manner.
You've got me tempted to actually buy it here. Okay, big talking point since we're on the F1. Max or Lewis on Sunday?
In regards to what happened on Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, Duncan alluded to it in my case earlier. I'm contrary to what Duncan actually said. I'm actually on Max's not side, but I'm a lot more sympathetic towards Max on this. And I know what's going to happen. Barry's going to
Dominic is 100% backing up Lewis. We've just seen it in the chat.
Apparently, that's what it says in the chat. I know what's going to happen with this. Barry's going to mention, look at what happened later on in the race with Lewis and Charles Leclerc overtaking for the lead.
And Lando. But that's fine. On both those instances, Lewis Hamilton was a lot closer to the apex of that corner. Yeah, but...
Which Max is in the same place. Max is in the same place as Lando and Charles through that corner. I can't remember exactly what happened with Lando, but Charles caught some oversteer on the exit of the corner, ran wide, and that's when Lewis actually passed. It wasn't through the corner, it wasn't before the corner, it was after the corner when Charles ran wide.
I think
what happened. It wasn't deliberate. It was an honest mistake, which happened after, let's be fair, some really good hard racing.
Yeah, well, define good hard racing. Start of the first lap, Max had to leave the track because again wouldn't yield. Went off the track in order to maintain his position.
We've seen examples where Lewis wouldn't yield. Lewis has been the overly aggressive one in various situations before, including in championship fights.
I'm going to get this because we weren't. This is only a bit of banter.
I haven't even said anything.
Yes, okay. Get your point in, and then I'll get mine, and then we'll move on.
I think. Yes, obviously, Sammy, you've made the point for me in the sense of there were 3 instances in the same corner, 3 moves made by Lewis, and only one driver ended up in the wall, and that's the one that
on only one of them, Lewis didn't make the apex.
But
funnily enough, that's the one where the driver ended up in the wall.
Okay, but the racing track. Let's be honest, the racing track is wide, sometimes, or not that wide, because it's obviously about 2 cars width-ish. But whilst it's in the driver's benefit to hit the apex because it's the fastest way through the corner, there isn't a rule that says you have to hit the apex in the corner.
He could have moved in further.
He
misjudged his speed.
But
it was an honest mistake.
Bear in mind, though, he'd moved away from the wall because I think there's 2 defining things that, for me, put a little bit of a shadow over Max for this, okay? People want to talk about Lewis and his dangerous driving. Firstly, Max almost put Lewis in the wall. If you watch that replay, Max kept going to a point where it got just on the cusp of being you're sailing close to the wind, and then he backed off. Second, if you then actually watch Max's onboard footage, as they come into the corner, Max nudges his steering wheel left and then turns back in. He actually makes, as Lewis is alongside him, he actually turns the steering wheel back towards Lewis.
Doing a
because he's already made a correction. He can't go straight on. It's a left hand.
Okay, guys. I'm going to move it on.
It's a corner. He can't go straight on. Otherwise, he does end up in barriers.
Well, I'll just give you mine, then we're moving on. We have to move on because we could sit and discuss this all day. I think
we really could.
For me, I think it's a case of what is good for the goose is good for the gander, and it is. I can see why it shouldn't be given, and I can see why it should have been given. And I think they went for the worst option, and they went bang in the middle. I think it's pleasing absolutely no one. If it was me, I would go racing incident. But I can 100% see why they have went the other. So error is me being on the fence. So there we go. We will move on to some Stadia related stuff again. This just it was just a bit of fun, and it's 50-50 in our pool.
It's not.
Team Lewis is now winning. It's just
in which case I won't end the poll yet.
So there we go. Moving on, NBA 2K22 has just been announced for, and it is coming to all platforms, basically bar Stadia. Which would you expect them to come? Is this 2K getting cold feet that we have long expected? And should we be worried about some of the other games coming, like WWE 2K22? Sammy?
I think we kind of rehash what we said about F1, except I'm less knowledgeable about the topic.
I would say NBA 2K22 would be bigger than F1.
I agree, but I'm less knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
In terms of a gaming platform will need its yearly franchises, and I would hope, I don't necessarily have any logic for this in the case of NBA, but I would hope that it's a year out to try and gauge proper support for the platform and go again for what would be the 2023 game, because F1's the only one that does it based on the actual year. Everyone else names it after the following year for some reason.
Isaiah, thanks for joining us. Barry, do you think this is a big deal?
I mean, I think in terms of 2K games, if you are somebody who is after those franchises, I mean, I think obviously NBA is the big one. I think that puts us we know that from the top looking downward, shall we say, at 2K, they don't particularly look that favourably on Stadia. They've been a little bit on the outspoken side, shall we say. So there's an element of for me that says that there's actually not a tremendous amount of surprise in the fact that NBA is not there. I'm actually going to say I don't think that we will get WWE either. I don't think Battlegrounds was... I think the WWE games are probably a different thing because they were in a little bit of trouble anyway, in the sense of they missed a year last year because the previous installment was not great. Was pretty much slated as kind of just being a bit of a reskin on the previous year, whereas I know they've put some focus into 2022. But I think that'll mean that it will skip Stadia. I think we could well see this year with... I can't remember if they're doing a PGA 2K22 because I know EA have got their golf game.
They are.
But I actually think that we are going to see all of them skip, which will effectively put us in a position where kind of from racing to football management to basketball to golf, I think we could be without some of those big franchises.
Okay. This, I hate doing I told you so, but this is not saying, this is I told you so about NBA not coming. It is more about calling out the yearly franchises which haven't come. When we have been calling out F1, Football Manager, MotoGP not coming, it is just the worrying sign. And I think a lot of people out there, especially in America, because the NBA is absolutely massive, have now just went, oh my goodness, this isn't coming. What are we going to do? And I have already seen a number of people, just what happened with F1 2021, 21.
F1 makes sense. F1 is the current year. Everything else is the next year.
With what happened with F1 2021 for us over here in Europe and who actually played that game, people were out making arrangements to play the next French or next year of it. People are now starting to do that with NBA 2K 2022 as well. The warning lights are there, and this is why logos matter. This is why you should get your name out there. If this is coming, I think Stadia need to get this out as soon as possible before people jump and go on to other platforms, because it's, yes, you can go backwards and forwards to Stadia, but it's always harder to get people back if they get a brand new shiny thing, because they get attached to the brand new shiny thing. So I hope that they're going to come out here and say that it is coming, but at this moment in time, it does not look it. I will hold my hands up and say I thought it was coming, because a number of job listings.
I was going to mention this.
A number of job listings have been mentioning Stadia with NBA, but it doesn't seem to have come to light. What I'm hoping is they've got it in development, and they're just waiting for the check to come across for them to actually make it worth their while to port it across. And I hope that check comes, because it's going to matter. However, if Stadia is moving into the submodel, getting games day and date isn't as much as a worry. So if they're going to really be pushing Pro, and that is where you're mainly going to game on Stadia now, you'll still be able to buy your games, etc., but their main focus is selling you Pro. This will take the pressure off getting these games day and date, which may be a good thing. So I think this story is going to evolve, but it is a worrying sign if Stadia is going to be a paid platform first.
I think there's the other thing as well, is to kind of give you the credit for it, is as much as you've been kind of gone through what you've just said there, you have also been saying for a number of months now. I know we've had multiple debates on returning franchises, and you were saying 2K was one to watch as to whether we actually see some of those games returning.
I'll be honest, I dismissed it, because those NBA 2K22 would be the third game in the series, I think.
This is why we need to watch out for EA now as well. We've missed out on a number of EA titles. We're missing out some in the future as well, with Battlefield being confirmed as not coming to Stadia. It is out there on Twitter. The question was asked, and they said...
Is that outright confirmed? Not on Twitter, not on Stadia, no.
Yeah, it was from EA themselves have came out. They are not going to any other platforms, and this is especially a massive miss now with crossplay being in it now. So it's I am wondering, are Stadia going just for the Pro and just trying to get as many games as possible? They're not trying to get the big titles. They're going to maybe try and get back catalogs, because it's to build up their library. Because if they could just say they got a number of these older sort of games on the Stadia, let's say a Limbo or Inside, a load of these indie darlings, start building up the Pro, making the Pro look really enticing, and the occasional older one, I'm going to say it, the BioShock, into the library, or of games of that ilk. That could be a better way, just to get it out there. It's not looking too good for Stadia with the big third parties if they're not going to part with their cash. There's just going to be so many games to actually watch.
And I think that's the biggest concern for me, is what move. Obviously, we've seen that those moves that we're talking about at the top of the show, but what move does come next? Because if we miss out on NBA, we miss out on golf, we miss out on F1, no MotoGP, no Football Manager, no Battlefield, there suddenly becomes a swathe of games that there's more not on the platform than there are that kind of people want, which then kind of makes it one of two avenues, where it's either an Ubisoft platform or it's an indie platform with Ubisoft kind of plus baked in. So that's why I'm certainly intrigued to see kind of what moves they do make to kind of switch that up, because of course there's still stuff supposed to be coming from Deep Silver in terms of Chorus and those sorts of things. So it's not the be all and end all of the fact that some of these franchises aren't coming back, but there is a mounting list of games that aren't coming that kind of people ultimately want to play.
Yeah, and that is the concern. We'll make the comparison of if you take Ubisoft out from Stadia for the big AAA titles, Stadia ain't looking too good for big AAA titles. I know people will come out here and say there's another one which is absolutely brilliant, but if you just take Ubisoft out, there is just holes appearing now, and the whole.
Maybe not so much in terms of games that are already on the platform, because we've already talked about F1 2020 and Cyberpunk 2077 will be mentioned as well. But in terms of games that have been announced so far,
yeah,
you talk about the next 12 months.
Yeah, for gamers, it is just about what is coming next, and we've talked about it before. You don't have these games coming, or you don't see them coming, you start to get worried. But if Stadia is moving to the sub model, these worries actually deflate because you're not expecting games day and date. But if you're buying games, you are. It's.
Do you think that puts it in a position where it becomes more of a supplement to your gaming repertoire rather than a main focus for where you game?
Absolutely. I think this is what we've been sort of preaching here. We're going to just jump between all the different platforms going forward to play our games. And if Stadia goes to the supplemental or full-on sub-model, I think it becomes a bit more appealing if they build up the library of games, because there is some good games on Stadia. If they get dropped into Pro, that could make things appealing. If that library jumps from it's about 40 to 100, where it gets a lot more interesting, but they still need to have a look at the price as well, because especially for the States, because you're going to be competing then with Game Pass and Luna, and Luna's cheaper, Game Pass is more expensive, but they've got the first party, and it's just going to get really, really interesting. It's going to be a big, massive fight going on here. It's brilliant. No Time to Game. Lost Judgment is another game Stadia might miss out on. That is 100% correct. It is also not going to PC. It is not listed for Stadia. It does not look like it is coming to Stadia either, which for me is a big shocker as well, because as we know, Judgment just dropped in Stadia a couple of months ago. It's
with Stadia.
Yep, absolutely. And it was next gen only as well. You know,
yes, it was. Yeah.
So yeah, that could. It definitely could. That's a good shout. It could be another one.
Yeah, we're going to be saying that, but we'll move on to another Ubisoft game now as well. With please set right, Rainbow Six Extraction.
Yay!
And Riders Republic have both been delayed for everywhere, not just Stadia. Riders Republic is coming the end of October, and Rainbow Six, I'm just going to say it now because I don't want to describe myself, has just moved into next year, the first quarter of next year, or sorry, not the first quarter, January next year. Thoughts, guys? Oh, and just before your thoughts, we do know that Stadia is getting the next-gen version of Riders Republic with the bigger lobbies, which is going to be, could give us something to maybe play about with down the line.
Yes. I think that's what I'm going to start with. Riders Republic is probably the game I've been most excited about coming to Stadia this year. And the idea of it's a fast-paced, sort of extreme, not motorsport, but certainly racing, skiing, snowboarding, paragliding, that sort of thing, and the massive multiplayer aspect of it as well. With Ubisoft implementing crossplay in their other titles, that gives me a lot of hope that we can continue to get full lobbies for a long time on not just Stadia but all cloud platforms. And I think that'll be it's ripe for opportunities. Should we need to do some events at some point? ...
Barry.
Yeah, and I think there was no real question that both of these were going to come, to the platform. I think in terms of the delay, I think I can't remember. Did I say this on Friday? I think they've possibly, and I think I kind of explained it, and then you said you think they've learnt their lesson from last year. And yeah, 100%. I think they do, with the way that they kind of had, Watch Dogs, Valhalla, and Immortals last year. I think they're trying. They are making Far Cry the focal point for the fall. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed that doesn't get delayed. Yeah,
hopefully. Because I think if you look around some of the other developers as well, there are franchises that are kind of being pushed back. On other platforms, we've got exclusive to platforms kind of being knocked back. There's almost a little window there where you can kind of have a little bit of a time to shine on, across the board on all of the platforms as a game. So that's why I don't think we'll see a Far Cry 6 delay being announced. I think that will hit its mark because that's the focal point. Riders Republic, looking forward to it. I think it'd be great to kind of jump in, and I certainly know, carrying on from Sammy's ... I certainly know that it's one we'll have a lot of fun with when we put our heads together with some ideas. So I'll look forward to that. Extraction, it's Rainbow Six. I don't really think there's any more that needs to kind of be said. When they showed it off over the E3 period at the Ubisoft Forward, I think everybody was, found it really, really appealing. They like the look of what they've done. They clearly need to take some time to, to get it polished and get it right, and just put the finishing touches on it. And that's never a bad thing.
I'm going to ask you a question here to both of you. With this new announcement today, do you think that gets this extraction overlooked? Do you think they have got two multiplayer? I know it's PvE for extraction, but are they diluting themselves again? We've also got the Division Heartland as well to come out. Are we going to see any more games slipped? I think Far Cry is probably the safest one there, but there seems to be lots of samey sort of stuff coming out.
I think Ubisoft have always, in my mind at least, struggled with that. Obviously, I haven't struggled with that, and they're very successful franchises. But I've struggled to differentiate between Rainbow Six and Division and the Tom Clancy series, and which overarches which, and it gets even more complicated now because isn't the Division franchise getting stuff like books and Netflix series, and so there's even more stuff that's going to be tied into that. I find it very confusing, so I stay away from it. I guess I kind of see those games as one massive lump anyway. I was interested in Defiant, and as a PvE title, I am keeping an eye on Extraction, but I couldn't look at a game and instantly tell you, oh, that's Division, or oh, that's Rainbow Six. I lacked that skill set.
Sorry, carry on.
I thought I didn't know you were wanting to talk. So what were you going to say? I was just going to move it on. So I was.
Oh no, sorry. I was just going to say, if they get this right, I think they've got the ability to pull off 3 games across 3-ish franchises, shall we say? Because a kind of Defiant's kind of a little bit of a mix. But I think in terms of game type, they've potentially, I think we need to know more about Heartland probably, but they have got the potential to absolutely nail these 3 games, bob on, and give you a different experience from each one. I think Extraction, you know what you're going to get from it. Yeah, you're going to find that Defiant, as we've talked about, it's your kind of Rainbow Six meets COD type kind of hybrid, which is going to kind of tick a certain audience. And then I think you'll probably find that then Heartlands is again going to be maybe something slightly different. I think you might find something like Heartlands goes possibly in the region of maybe something like a Destiny type thing, where you've kind of got seasons. So you've got free to play where you've maybe got an element of kind of episodes, and then you kind of have to buy in to kind of get into further seasons, possibly. And I think if they set kind of that up, you've then got 3 games that are very different in their own right that will attract different audiences.
Yep, we've just ended the poll there, and Team Lewis won over with Team Max.
I didn't realise I was logged into the Cloudy account when I typed that.
That was okay. I knew it was you. So just to finish off here, I'm not sure if we want to talk about it because I'll let Sammy talk about it, and I will give you my thoughts at the end. Sammy, that game, what's that name of that game?
Yeah, so it snuck in amongst everything else happened this week, but we have another dinosaur game, I believe, announced for Stadia in, I want to say Theta, or it might be Theta.
It is Theta, yeah. I think
Theta.
that's how it's pronounced, yeah.
I'll call it Theta, and someone says it's wrong, I'm blaming Barry.
Is that
how it's working now?
Is that the game the Nerf Report uncovered?
The Nerf Report was one that basically brought the game to light over Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I thought the game was. I can remember the name of it. I'll give you my thoughts, and then people can make fun of me. Absolutely credit out to the Nerf Report for getting that. He broke that a couple of months ago, and he just followed it up when he got confirmation. I think this game is getting a lot of hype out there because it's a game coming to Stadia, not because people like the game. I think it's just, oh my goodness, there's a game coming to Stadia and it's going to get built up to high heaven. From my recollection, the game looked in interesting shape, and I'm hoping that when we get a new trailer, it looks slightly better. That would be my take. Barry, you can disagree, so you're not cast upon with that.
I think all I was going to say is obviously from the type of game, I think it may be, in some senses, it stands to maybe give people again a different experience. I think when we look at particular kind of game franchises, we kind of focus a lot on kind of Norse mythology or kind of, ancient England and Greek and all these sorts of things through different franchises. I think the thing this brings to the table is where it's kind of centered around kind of Asian and Sri Lankan kind of history and mythology, which I guess is probably I don't know about anybody else here, but I certainly can't say that I'm well versed in kind of Asian and Sri Lankan mythology, so I think there could be something interesting in that front. But yeah, it got to sit and see what it delivers and whether it kind of tightens itself up on the graphical front.
Samuel,
I can't add anything. I've not seen the trailer. I know. Basically, I know about it because, as you mentioned, it's a game that's coming to Stadia. So, obviously, a lot of people being very, very vocal about it, very enthusiastic for it. I will have to have a look at it. I thought to Dinosaur, but you also mentioned, Barry, about Sri Lankan heritage. I'm not sure, but that is something I've been not overtly supportive of, but rather interested to see games taking other areas of history into the limelight, into the spotlight. So I think that's good and a good move to bring it to Stadia, of course.
Okay, dope. I think we will wrap this up here after the disasters which has been going on tonight. I'm blaming Sam. I think I've worked out what the issue was, but I will let you know after I think I worked it out. So there is some good news. And here we go. Thank you all for joining us. Sammy, is there anything you want to end with? Bar saying, I am awesome.
No, I think I've said everything I need to tonight. We'll see how it lands.
Barry?
No, I think we've got it covered. I think we've gone through as much as we can, and we've ridden through the technical gremlins.
Nope. Okie dokies. I will end it there then.